Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa with the top stories of this hour. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has urged warring sides to reduce violence in Afghanistan. Meeting a Taliban delegation in Islamabad, Khan reiterated that there is no military solution to the conflict. He cautioned against those trying to spoil the ongoing peace process. The Prime Minister said Pakistan will continue to facilitate efforts aimed at bringing peace to Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, at least 15 people have been killed and 20 wounded in an explosion at a religious gathering in central Ghazni province. The Interior Ministry said the explosives were placed in a rickshaw. It said children were among those killed. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says India is planning a surgical strike in Pakistan. Addressing a media briefing in Abu Dhabi, Qureshi said India is perpetrating terrorism in Pakistan. He added that Pakistan is a peace-loving country but is capable of giving a firm response to any Indian misadventure, just like it did in February 2019. He warned that any Indian aggression will be detrimental to the ongoing Afghan peace process. The Pakistan Army says Indian troops deliberately opened fire on 2 UN military observers along the line of control when they were on their way to meet the victims of India's ceasefire violations. In a statement, the military's media wing said the observers remained unhurt, but their vehicle was damaged. It said the observers were evacuated by Pakistani troops to Rawalakot. It said the incident shows Indian Army's complete disregard for international norms. Hundreds of Sikhs have demonstrated outside Indian embassies in the US, Britain, Canada and Australia to shore up support for farmers protesting in India. On Thursday, around 300 Sikhs and other overseas Indians took part in a rally in Melbourne to express their support for Indian farmers. A similar rally is planned near the State Parliament of Victoria in Melbourne on Saturday. Tens of thousands of farmers have been camped on Delhi border since last month, demanding the government to repeal the reforms they say benefit big corporates. The United States has surpassed 17 million cases of new coronavirus with more than 310,000 deaths. Brazil recorded over 1,000 new COVID-19 deaths for the first time in more than 3 months, with the tally crossing 184,000. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the virus has claimed 83 lives and infected nearly 3,000 people in the past 24 hours. The nationwide death toll has risen to 9,164. Globally, there are 1.6 million fatalities and 74 million infections. In cricket, New Zealand beat Pakistan by 5 wickets in the first 2020 of the three-match series in Auckland. Kiwis won the match in the 19th over after the Shaheen set a target of 154 runs. Tim Seifert scored a half-century for New Zealand. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has urged warring sides to reduce violence in Afghanistan. Meeting a Taliban delegation in Islamabad, Khan reiterated that there is no military solution to the protracted conflict. The Taliban delegation was led by Mullah Abdul Ghani Brother. More in the following report.
The main focus of the meeting between the Taliban Political Commission and Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan was to deliberate on efforts to bring a durable peace to the neighboring Afghanistan, reiterating that the dialogue is the only way forward. The Prime Minister said all sides must seize this historic opportunity to negotiate a political settlement in the war-torn country. He was referring to the intra-Afghan talks between Afghan and the Taliban negotiators in Doha as a part of the landmark peace deal between the United States and the Taliban struck in February this year. The talks are currently suspended till the first week of January, for which the venue is yet to be decided. The Prime Minister said Pakistan will continue to facilitate the efforts aimed at bringing peace to Afghanistan. He also urged all sides to remain vigilant against those who are trying to spoil the peace process. Violence in Afghanistan has spiked in recent months, even as the Taliban and Afghan government tried to hammer out a peace deal that could put an end to the decades of war. In the latest attack, 15 people were killed and 20 wounded in an explosion at a religious gathering in the central Ghazni province. No group has immediately claimed responsibility for the attack.
For more on this, we are joined by Rahimullah Yousafzai, an expert on Afghan affairs. Sir, thank you for joining us. Sir, how do you see the visit of the Taliban Political Commission to Pakistan amid the ongoing peace process?
Pakistan had invited the delegation. This is the third visit by Taliban delegation coming from Qatar in the last several months. And this is, a continuation of the consultation on the Afghan peace process. Pakistan has been supporting the peace process and playing the role of a facilitator. Pakistan has been urging the Taliban to reduce violence and agree to a ceasefire. Earlier, Pakistan was asking Taliban to negotiate directly with the Afghan government. Taliban are now talking to the Afghan government. Some progress has been made in the talks. Pakistan would also like to update itself regarding the Taliban viewpoint on the Afghan peace process. The talks happening in Doha. Also, the Prime Minister was in Kabul, met Ashraf Ghani. So Pakistan actually has been in touch with all the stakeholders and all the actors in the Afghan conflict. So Pakistan invited Abdullah, Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, Muhammad Muhakkik, the Speaker of their parliament, and 21-member delegation along with him of parliamentarians. So in a way, Pakistan is trying to talk to all the people who matter and seek their help and offer help for making Afghanistan peaceful again.
Sir, Prime Minister Imran Khan has once again warned against peace spoilers. Can you please explain this?
I think there are non-state actors which are spoilers. One of them is ISIS or Daesh, which has been claiming responsibility for a number of terrorist attacks in Afghanistan. And then there are also other international terrorist groups who also are spoilers because nobody is talking to them and everybody is trying to fight them. Al-Qaeda or IMU or ETIM, all these groups, they are also based in Afghanistan. We also have the Pakistani Taliban, TTP, and the Baloch separatists. They are also opposed to this peace process. So they are the spoilers, the non-state actors. But then we also have state actors. And I think India must be mentioned. India, has got a lot of influence in Afghanistan. It is very close to the Afghan government and very anti-Taliban and anti-Pakistan. India would not like the Taliban to become part of the present political system or share power. And India will not like Pakistan to take credit for its peacemaking role. So I think they will find an opportunity to spoil these talks. And that, is a matter of concern. That's why I think the U.S. Special Envoy for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, has been visiting India quite frequently and seeking Indian help for the Afghan peace process.
Mr. Yousafzai, thank you very much for your time. Now moving on to Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says India is planning a surgical strike in Pakistan. Addressing a media briefing in Abu Dhabi, Qureshi said India is perpetrating terrorism in Pakistan. He added that Pakistan is a peace-loving country but is capable of giving a firm response to any Indian misadventure, just like it did in February 2019. He warned that any Indian aggression will be detrimental to the ongoing Afghan peace process. India, he said, is trying to take spotlight of its internal problems, including the ongoing farmers' protests and discrimination against minorities. Earlier, Qureshi informed his UAE counterpart about threats to the peace in the region. He said Pakistan has recently submitted a dossier to the United Nations containing undeniable evidence of Indian state terrorism in Pakistan. The Pakistan Army says Indian troops deliberately opened fire on two UN military observers along the line of control when they were on their way to meet the victims of India's ceasefire violations. In a statement, the military's media wing said the observers remained unhurt, but their vehicle was damaged. It said the observers were evacuated by Pakistani troops to Rawalakot. It said the incident shows Indian Army's complete disregard for international norms. The Pakistan Army says it stands in solidarity with UN military observers and appreciates the services being rendered by them. For more on this, we are joined by Major General Ijaz Zafan, retired. Sir, thank you very much for talking to Indus News. How should the United Nations respond to India after its own military observers were targeted deliberately by Indian troops along the line of control?
I think it has been very strange that United Nations has been ignoring the conduct of the Indian establishment since long. When the military observers group, that is United Nations Military Observer Group, India and Pakistan, they were deployed to observe the ceasefire violations or the atrocities or the condition of the people in Indian occupied Kashmir and the Pakistan, Azad Kashmir of Pakistan. When they were deployed, India never permitted them to go to the line of control and observe if there were ever any violations taking place. To the contrary, Pakistan always permitted them to go and visit any place along the line of control at free will. So the United Nations kept ignoring it, and now, after 72 years of period since 1948, India has disregarded these UN resolutions on Kashmir, and they have absorbed Kashmir and changed the status of the Indian occupied Kashmir, altering the complete status, and there is a kind of curfew-like condition in the Indian occupied Kashmir. So all these violations went unnoticed, and United Nations, I'm sorry to say, never took a serious note of all these violations. And today, things have come to pass when the United Nations Military Observers Group, they were fired at when they were going to visit a village where the victims of ceasefire violation were there, and their vehicle was fired at. Fortunately, there are no casualties, and both the observers in the vehicle, they survived. But this is a grave violation, and I expect that the United Nations takes a notice of this thing and holds the Indian soldiers accountable for this kind of violence.
Sir, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has said that India is planning a surgical strike to divert attention from the Kashmir issue and its internal chaos. Can you please explain this?
Look, we have seen previously also that India has always been staging false flag operations one way or the other to externalize the indigenous struggle of the people of Kashmir. And now what's going on inside India, there's a grave violation of human rights inside India, where minorities are feeling insecure, maybe Dalits, maybe Christians or Muslims. And then they introduced the Citizen Amendment Act, where the displaced people who are there for the last 50 years in Kashmir, in India, they are sort of homeless after the second generation is there in India, but they have been made homeless because of the Citizen Amendment Act. And now when the Kisan movement is there in Delhi and they are protesting for their rights, India is trying to call them Khalistani movement, which is Pakistan-sponsored. when this kind of atrocities are being committed inside India, people are feeling insecure. So India is under pressure. They are trying to externalize all this and trying to convey a message to the rest of the world that there is no indigenous character of all that is happening in India, and it is all inspired or motivated by Pakistan, which is a flawed narrative which they are trying to sell to the world. They are likely to do something as they did in Pulwama, and then they came to strike Balakot, and there was a probability of escalation, but because of restraint from the Pakistan side, when our fighters reacted and went inside, they did not engage the precise military targets and dropped their payload in an open area to convey a message that we do not wish to escalate. We even released their pilot within 3 days to normalize the situation. But India, there is a kind of madness going on in India, and there is every probability and possibility that India may look for yet another false flag operation, as they did in Bombay, as they did in Pulwama. So they did it in Uri, they did it in Pathankot, and they have not been able to provide any evidence to Pakistan or to the rest of the world about Pakistan's involvement in the internal affairs of India. But to the contrary, we have Kulbhushan Yadav in our custody, who has confessed that he has been tasked to carry out sabotage and subversion in mainland Pakistan. So this is the attitude which the Indians are doing. So there is a possibility that they may stage yet another false flag operation to accuse Pakistan or to create tension or a limited kind of action in Indian occupied Kashmir, across line of control, or maybe across the international border, which may lead to escalation between the two countries.
So recently, an EU NGO exposed Indian propaganda against Pakistan by influencing global decision makers at the EU and the UN. But the global community seems reluctant to take any action against India. What's your say on this?
Well, unfortunately, because of the strategic interest of the United States of America and rest of the world, where they wish to contain the growing economic influence of China, so they are looking for a counterweight or a force which can contain China. And in this region, it is only the compatible power, or at least going by the size of the country, size of the economy. So India is this option for America. So because of that strategic alliance or the convergence of interest, as the American Secretary of State put it a few days back, that because of the shared values and the common interest, we stand beside India. So because of this kind of understanding between India and the United States of America, India is looking the other way. United Nations is nothing more than a talk shop, or it cannot make an independent judgment unless it is supported or facilitated by United States of America, as I see it. So I think because of this, India is getting away with all these atrocities, with all these violations every time.
Thank you, sir, for talking to Indus News. Now, moving on to Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa has witnessed a joint air exercise between Pakistan and China at an operational base of the Pakistan Air Force. Addressing the participants of the drills, the Army Chief said the exercise is aimed at improving the combat capacity of the two forces to face geostrategic challenges. While interacting with the base personnel, General Bajwa lauded the professionalism and dedication of the Pakistan Air Force. Dubbed Shaheen 9, the drills are 9th in the series of joint exercises between the two forces, which started in 2011 and are held in Pakistan and China on alternate basis. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now moving on to UN General Assembly has unanimously approved a resolution sponsored by Pakistan. It reaffirms the right to self-determination for people subjected to colonial, foreign and alien occupation.
The resolution called Universal Realization of the Right of Peoples to Self-Determination, was co-sponsored by 71 countries. The assembly opposed foreign military intervention and deplored the plight of refugees and displaced persons. Pakistan's UN Ambassador Munir Akram said the move reaffirms Islamabad's legal, political and moral case in support to Kashmiris. The assembly also adopted a resolution on Palestinian self-determination and their right to an independent state. Later, Akram, who also heads the Economic and Social Council, called on UNGA President Volkan Bozkir. They discussed areas of coherence in the upcoming joint briefing of General Assembly and ECOSOC.
Hundreds of Sikhs have demonstrated outside Indian embassies in the US, Britain, Canada and Australia to shore up support for farmers protesting in India. On Thursday, around 300 Sikhs and other overseas Indians took part in a rally in Melbourne to express their support for Indian farmers. A similar rally is planned near the State Parliament of Victoria in Melbourne on Saturday.
Tens of thousands of farmers have been camped on Delhi's border since last month, demanding the government to repeal 3 controversial farm laws they say benefit big corporates. The farmers, many in their 60s and above, have been braving North India's harsh winter to camp out in the open with their tractors and trailers parked bumper to bumper. At least 25 people have died, several of them due to the biting cold weather, during the 3-week protest. The protest movement has already drawn international attention, with Britain and Canada showing concern over the use of violence against peaceful protesters. Farmers fear private companies would eventually dictate terms and the government would stop buying grains like wheat and rice from them at a minimum guaranteed price. But the government insists reforms will benefit farmers, allowing them to market their produce and boost production through private investment. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has defended the laws and invited the farmers for more talks, despite several negotiations failing to break the standoff. But the protesters have said that nothing short of an official annulment of the 3 laws will be enough to change their position.
Now moving on to Iran has rejected a call by the International Atomic Energy Agency to negotiate the 2015 nuclear deal. Iran's envoy to IAEA, Kazem Gharibabadi, says any assessment on how the commitments are implemented is beyond the agency's mandate. He said the watchdog's job is to monitor and verify voluntarily adopted preventive measures and provide regular updates. Gharibabadi also said there is no necessity for a new document on the agency's role, as it will complicate the situation. Earlier, IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi said U.S. re-entry to the deal would require a new agreement. He said it would have to address how Iran's violations of the accord can be reversed. More than 300 boys kidnapped from a boarding school in northwestern Nigeria have been released. In an interview, State Governor Aminu Bello Masari says the students are on their way back to PAK-CHINA. Masari said all the freed students were found unharmed and are in a good state. He said most of the kidnapped students have been rescued, if not all of them. He did not say how many had been missing or how they were freed. Masari also made assurances on the increased security of all schools in the state before they reopen. The attack on the school on December 11th has been reclaimed by Boko Haram militants. In the U.S., federal authorities have expressed alarm about a long undetected intrusion into their computer systems around the globe. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency said the attack was aimed at critical infrastructure. Homeland Security has defined critical infrastructure as vital assets to its economy, power plants, and financial institutions. While warning of a grave risk to the government and private networks, it suspects that Russian hackers were behind the attacks. Authorities said it was hard to detect and would be difficult to undo. The Department of Energy acknowledged they have been among those breached by unknown hackers. In Iraq, a leaked draft of the state budget has prompted widespread outrage. It confirmed the government's intentions to devalue the national currency and cut salaries to cope with a severe economic crisis. In a statement, the Finance Ministry expressed resentment and deep regret over the unauthorized publication. It said the premature release of the bill to media was a very irresponsible act. The ministry said public hysteria over the content would impact the neutrality of the legislators. The parliament is to discuss and introduce possible amendments to the the draft in a session scheduled for Saturday. The U.S. has surpassed 17 million cases of the new coronavirus with more than 310,000 deaths. Brazil recorded over 1,000 new COVID-19 deaths for the first time in more than 3 months, with the tally crossing 184,000. Globally, there are 1.6 million fatalities and 74 million infections. More in the following report.
A frightening surge in coronavirus cases and vaccine optimism are trading hand in hand at this stage of the pandemic, with COVID-19 hospitalizations at a record high for the 12th straight day in the U.S. The Food and Drug Authority advisors have endorsed emergency use of Moderna's vaccine. Meanwhile, California has reported record high daily deaths, while San Francisco has imposed a 10-day quarantine on the incoming travelers. Down south, Colombia's daily cases have reached their highest level since August as the government warned people against large holiday gatherings. Chile says the first doses of the Pfizer vaccine will arrive this month, allowing it to begin vaccination before the year ends.
Hasta ahora tenemos.
So far, we are in very advanced stages and we have agreements that guarantee 10 million doses with the Pfizer-BioNTech laboratory and 10 million doses with the Sinovac laboratory. If we add to this the agreement we have with laboratories such as AstraZeneca, Oxford, Janssen, Johnson & Johnson, and the alliance with COVAX, they allow us to reach more than 30 million doses of vaccines. These contracts will allow us to distribute 20 million doses of vaccine during the first half of the next year.
In Europe, French President Emmanuel Macron's positive test has sent ripples through the European political sphere, with multiple leaders forced to quarantine. Northern Ireland is preparing for a sweeping lockdown and deployment of paramedics from the Republic of Ireland. Meanwhile, a new mystery cluster of COVID-19 cases in Australia's New South Wales continue to grow. Many states and territories are imposing border restrictions and other curbs amid fears of a surge.
So everybody in Greater Sydney needs to be on high alert. If you have the mildest of symptoms, please get tested and isolate. But also, can everybody please think about their activity? Nobody should be getting on public transport without wearing a mask. Nobody in Greater Sydney should be going to a supermarket, a place of worship, or other high-risk areas without wearing a mask.
In Asia, South Korea continues to grapple with the latest outbreak as it reported over 1,000 cases overnight yet again. China is planning to vaccinate 50 million people before the start of the peak Lunar New Year travel season, and Pfizer has filed a request for approval of its vaccine in Japan.
Now moving on to Pakistan, 83 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to over 9,164. The ministry said over 3,000 new infections were detected overnight, which takes the active cases to more than 42,000 in the country. The health ministry says out of over 451,000 countrywide cases, more than 399,000 people have recovered. The ministry said over 201,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province, while Punjab has reported nearly 130,000 cases. In the capital city Islamabad, nearly 35,000 have been infected so far. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the U.S., 38 states have gathered to mark the third antitrust legal action against technology giant Google. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, who is leading the challenge, said the suit seeks to restore competition in the market. The lawsuit alleges that Google manipulates its search engine to give its products and services greater rankings over rivals. It says Google illegally maintains its monopoly over other search engines. New York Attorney General Letitia James said for decades now, Google has served as a gatekeeper of the internet. She said it has weaponized the searchers' data to kill off competitors and control public decision making. This comes after 10 states, led by Texas, filed a lawsuit against Google for violating the antitrust law. In Austria, world champion sport climber Angela Eiter has completed a groundbreaking gravity-defying route on a rock face in the mountains of Tyrol. ITER believes she is the first woman to conquer the route she has dubbed Madam Ching after a 19th century pirate. It took her 100 moves to ascend. She had to navigate her way through debris on the fragile rock. But in the end, Madame Ching was no match for the Austrian climber, who has 4 World Cup titles, 4 World Championship golds and 1 European Championship gold. Christmas has gone to the dogs in Peru. The nation's pooches put on their festive best to mark the holiday season. More in this report.
Funny hats, jingle bells and tartan were all the rage on this runway in Lima, the capital city of Peru. But the showstoppers were a stream of pampered pooches. There was a serious message behind the costumes, with owners speaking out against the use of fireworks this Christmas.
We organized this for the Christmas season, with people coming with their dogs dressed up for Christmas. They have received a talk on responsible pet ownership, and also when it comes to dealing with these festivities, there's always fireworks and such things have an impact.
Due to their heightened levels of hearing, many dogs suffer from anxiety from the sharp sounds of fireworks going off.
The message is just that, no to fireworks. They are very sensitive to sound, and it is them who lose out in Christmas. That is why we say no to fireworks.
The parade also awarded the best dressed pooch this holiday season.
Now moving on to the business stories, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says post-Brexit trade talks are now in a serious phase. In a statement, Johnson said every effort was being made to accommodate reasonable European Union requests on the level playing field. It said the gap has narrowed some fundamental areas which remain difficult to resolve. Johnson reiterated that the time is short and a no-deal scenario is very likely unless the EU changes their position substantially. Earlier, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said it will be very challenging to bridge the big differences, and particularly on the fisheries issue. She said there was substantial progress in the talks on many issues. Trade talks will resume today in Brussels, with 2 weeks to go before the UK finally leaves EU trading rules. The Wall Street stocks have opened at record highs as the coronavirus stimulus package remained in focus ahead of a weekend deadline. The retail stocks rose on the possibility of strong holiday sales. The S&P 500 hovered around the flat line while Nasdaq Composite traded marginally high. The Dow Jones Industrial Average Index also gained ground. Meanwhile, oil prices have gone down from a 9-month high as COVID-19 surge stokes demand fears. In cricket, New Zealand beat Pakistan by 5 wickets in the first 2020 of their 3-match series in Auckland. Kiwis won the match in the 19th over after the Shaheens set a target of 154 runs. Tim Seifert scored a half-century for the team. Jacob Duffy took 4 wickets for the Kiwis, giving 33 runs in his 4 overs. For the Green Caps, Harif Rauf took 3 wickets for 29 runs. Shadab Khan remained the top scorer for Pakistan with 42 runs in 32 balls. Both sides were playing without some of their key players. Bayern Munich forward Robert Lewandowski has been named the best FIFA Men's Player 2020, and England's Lucy Bronze has been named as the best FIFA Women's Player of the Year. More in this following report.
This year's FIFA Best Awards were conducted virtually due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Bayern Munich's Robert Lewandowski was crowned the best men's player in Zurich, beating Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. He won the German League and Cup double as well as the Champions League with Bayern. He finished as a top scorer in all 3 competitions and won the award for the first time.
I'm very proud to have won this award. It was a team performance, really. It was impressive what we were able to win all together. It's an incredible feeling, and I am very glad that I was able to be selected with Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo and receive the award.
Liverpool coach Jurgen Klopp has been named the best men's coach for the second successive year, while Bayern Munich's goalkeeper Manuel Neuer won the best men's goalkeeper award, beating Jan Oblak and Alisson. Meanwhile, the Netherlands' Serena Weyman was named the best women's coach and Sarah Buhari was awarded the best FIFA women's goalkeeper. Manchester City fullback Lucy Bronze won the Women's Best Player award, becoming the first women English player to take the prize.
If there's anything that 2020 has taught us is to appreciate every single moment that you've got, to never look too far ahead and to just live in the here and now. So I think winning this award right now, this year, I would appreciate it more than ever. And I'll remember this moment for the rest of my life. And I really will just enjoy the moment. And I'm just so thankful for everybody's support.
The winners have been decided by nominations from national team captains and head coaches. There was also an online ballot of fans and 200 media representatives.
Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.